Hi, Paul here,
I'm Pavitra.
and this is Gopa Trivedi. Gopa ended up being a fan of the miniature tradition. Mm. She actually went and worked in a karkhana, uh, studied in Baroda, uh, also highly influenced by Gulab Muhammad Sheikh, Nilima Sheikh, and I think the message here, uh, interestingly, in this day and age, very contemporary, is this theme of how we isolate and insulate ourselves from uh,
What's going on?
developments around us. But what this shows is that the stain spreads, and even things precious to you, as evidenced by this kiln, get stained at the end. So no one is isolated from the effects of developments that happen, sometimes even cross border, where you think your borders or your boundaries are safe. They're not. Think coronavirus.
One of the things I want to talk about when we're talking about Gopa's work is how do you find new artists, and how do you find new art, and what's that process of discovery? So this is actually a great story. I had long loved the work of a British artist who paints in the miniature tradition and shared that with Paul. He had loved it as well. And we found out that he was going to be sending a painting to India for a show that was being hosted by Gallery Arc, in my opinion, one of the best galleries in India today. And it was going to be in Baroda. And it was being curated by none other than Vasco. And when we started to talk to Gallery Arc and figure out when this exhibition was, we also realized that Manish Soni, uh, whom Paul is collaborating with, Manish is the artist behind the Isa Nama project that Paul is working on, was also part of the show. And so was Vineet Vyas, a young art history scholar whose Instagram feed I absolutely love and follow with religiously. So it just seemed like
That
all
he
of
was
these.
co-curating, right? With
I
Vasco.
think he was writing the narrative. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was writing the narrative with Vasco. It just seemed serendipitous that all of these elements had come together, and literally, I think it was our modern version of a tiger hunt from 100 years ago. We said, "Chalo, let's go and see this show and let's see what it's all about." So we packed our bags and we went to Baroda, and we went to this show, and some fabulous work. Manjunath Kamath, another artist that we both love, was also part of that show. Olivia Fraser, I mean, some really amazing work. And then we saw these beautiful works by Gopa. And I was immediately struck by them because I found them intensely feminine. Something about her work, to me, when I looked at this stain, I first actually interpreted it as blood, and I interpreted it as within the domain of a home, or within the canvas of a home, the role of a woman in literally giving her blood to protect this womb like space, which is the home, and sort of the embryonic relationship. Of course, Gopa has a completely different explanation, and that's wonderful to hear. But I think the great thing about art is that you react to it. It tells you a story, and even if it isn't always what the artist is trying to say, the fact that it touches you and it kind of stirs something within you. I love the placement of the kilim. It actually reminds me of more of the company school paintings than even traditional miniatures, just because of the sparseness of detail and the elements and the way in which it's been painted. And of course, later on, we found out that Gopa actually prepares her own vasli, or the miniature canvas, which is actually layers of thin muslin and paper that's rolled together. Manish Soni also prepares his own canvas, miniature artist too. But just the level of care and the level of detail that must have gone into thinking about it. And for me, these works are exciting not only with the elements left in, but equally with the elements left out. And I find that this narrative without a human figure, without an element from nature, and yet telling a strong story and so rooted in that miniature tradition. I found that really interesting, and I found Gopa as an artist really exciting. And then when we talked about it, we both agreed that this was perhaps a young artist that we wanted to represent in the Sarmaya collection. And art that gives you the opportunity to grow and learn new things is just great. So Gopa is a lovely, lovely find, we think, and a wonderful addition to our collection.
And what's interesting is that the British artist who we went looking for to start with was lying in customs and
And his work was in customs. He was safely in London.
He was in London. The work was in customs and it wasn't shown at the. But that was serendipitous.
But there's a part 2 to this story. And the other thing about great art is you have to wait for it. Your moment will come. So no amount of chasing works. If it's meant to be yours, it will be. So we went chasing a particular painting by a particular artist. We were so disappointed because it was in customs when we went to the show, and then by the time we found out it was acquired by someone else, and we were really, really disappointed. But that story had a very, very happy ending, and I think you're going to tell that one day in one of the next IGTV videos.
Yes, absolutely.